Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Neptunes Sunday. It's your boy V Moss here. Another special episode. This is our second episode in season 4, aka tribute to R&B season. I got a special guest here, multi-hyphenate hip hop culture journalist and content creator, Kia Turner. What's good, homie?
Oh my God, that was such a nice introduction. That was so sweet. What's up? I mean, I'm finally here. This has been, I think, what, a year in the making?
Yeah, you was talking about you about to start a podcast, and I was like, you gotta hop on. We listen, man. The one thing I love about this podcast is it puts people in my space that makes sense. The connections are there. So happy that we can finally get you on the show.
I know I'm excited to finally be here. I love everything like this podcast stands for, even when I found it. And I found it funny enough by accident because I was trying to the first podcast idea I had was, well, it was always going to be a hip hop themed podcast, but every season was going to be something different. So I was like, oh, the first season I'm gonna do the Neptunes. And I was like, let me see if anybody else has done a Neptune podcast. And then yours popped up and I was like, oh, that's actually really good. Okay, never mind. Fuck it. I got another idea.
So we'll get into that later because we got to figure out where you at with the podcast. I'm gonna be your podcast accountability partner to make sure that you.
Oh no.
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. So go ahead and just give a little bit of background, introduce yourself to the people, know who you are and what you got going on.
Okay, my name is Kia Turner. I am from Newark, New Jersey. Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly. I definitely do call myself a multi-hyphenate. I've done it all. I've done social media management. I've done content creation. I'm a journalist. I've done creative direction, production, all of that great stuff. But yeah, I'm just a multi-hyphenate girly from Newark. I love hip hop, love R&B just as much. I do enjoy exploring hip hop more, but R&B is still always worth having a conversation about. It is the pinpoint of it all for us. But yeah, I'm just a girl. Like
It's so funny that you said that. I think my partner Vogue is gonna come in. She's a huge, no doubt, Gwen Stefani fan, so she would appreciate that. So if she just joins everyone listening, it's not gonna be awkward. Like it's just you wouldn't even know that she wasn't even here to begin with. It'll be fine. So, talk a little bit about how like you got into the media and the writing space.
So I'm gonna actually make a long story short, and I'm actually gonna do it for once because I always say that and I never make the long story short. But I'm through social media, I've met a lot of amazing people, and I used to do Twitter threads on Twitter, which is kind of how I got my name up. So I would just do Twitter threads about anything. Like one time I did one about the VMAs. They almost snatched my Twitter account because of it, but I did it. So I used to do like a lot of different threads, and a lot of journalists would follow me mainly to take ideas, which is still all love to you guys. But like, yeah, a lot of journalists would follow me, a lot of editors would follow me, and one of those writers were Robin Mowat, who at the time was working at OK Player, and her and I connected through Mykesha Vaughn, who's a writer, amazing journalist. And Mykesha was working on this project called Pussy Rap and all of that on Clubhouse. This was back in when Clubhouse was actually thriving. And she had asked me to come on because I was known for doing deconstructing, which was basically taking songs, genres, artists, discographies, all of that, and breaking them down. Everybody kind of calls me like a music encyclopedia because I just always kind of know a fun fact. So she kind of brought me on to like break down these songs about women in rap, talking about their sexuality, their pussy, all that good stuff. So I met Robin through that. And then Robin and I connected, and she connected me with her editor, Demas, over at OK Player. And Demas gave me my very first real professional assignment. I had done things before, but he gave me my real first like official assignment, which was interviewing Jim Jones. And then from there, he was like, I really like working with you. Let's do this more often. And then that just led me to working at OK Player. And then that led me to other opportunities in media, writing for Rolling Stone and BET and who else? Vibe. And like I'm sitting here and doing work with NPR and all the rest of that great stuff. So yeah, that's what kind of trickled into that.
So real quick, tell us what's the drama with the VMA thread? Like what happened?
So basically, and Twitter still has this, but basically, like, if you post certain things and it's copywritten, like, they'll just completely snatch your account. So I had did a Hype Williams thread right before that, and Universal Group have reached out to me like, "Bitch, we will sue you because you had access to videos that like we don't even have access to." And I was like, "Okay, well, it's not my fault. It's online." Like I literally had to have a whole argument with them on like an email. So then they gave me my account back. And then with the VMAs, the issue is, I don't know how many people know this, but Viacom, which of course owns like MTV and BT and stuff like that, Viacom, a lot of their archives are destroyed. So a lot of old like award shows or music specials, I know you guys sit on Twitter and ask for them, but they literally cannot give them to you because they don't have access to something that has been destroyed or lost. They've employed people to try to find these things or rediscover them, but a lot of time they either find them online and it's really poor quality, or they just don't want to have to pay for something that they technically do own. So I was finding shit online that obviously they don't have anymore, and they reached out to me and was like, yeah, we will literally take your account if you keep doing this. So I had to just delete everything. I literally found every single VMA performance intro that was like special. Like I literally found damn near everything. I think it was maybe one or two I couldn't find, but I literally found like damn near everything stemming all the way back to the 80s. And yeah, they were like, bitch, I don't know how you did this. Congratulations, but also we will sue you. So I had to delete everything. So
That's crazy because I mean, just a quick connection to Neptunes, right? Like I remember very vividly. I think I might have even recorded it on videotape, but the 2002 VMAs was crazy for me personally at that time where I was at. But obviously that was a big Neptunes heavy performances with the whole Sean Combs, Usher, Busta Rhymes performance, and then obviously the Justin Timberlake debut, "Like I Love You" with Pusha and Malice coming out. Like that was a big that whole VMAs was a big deal.
yeah, I actually, because there's like certain VMA moments where I just remember seeing it so much growing up as a kid of it being re-aired. But
Mhm.
that's actually one VMA that I directly remember. Like that performance is probably like etched into my memory. It's one of those ones that just like, I think to be honest with you, that was probably the first time I asked, who is that guy on stage with them? Like I knew who Usher was, I knew who Puff was, and I knew I had seen that guy before, but I could not put a name to it. And I was like, who is that guy? And my sister, she was born in 88, so she's a little bit older than me. So she was really starting to get into that Neptunes phase, because this is when this is 2002, so we have Nelly coming out, we have Justin Timberlake. This is when really like everything else was kind of the lead up to this. Like 2002 was like, let's pull the trigger and these bullets are going off. So like my sister was instantly hooked in. So then she was watching anything that was the Neptunes. So then that's when I kind of like got caught up and I was like, oh, this is Pharrell. Okay, bet now I know who this guy is. But it was really that performance that for me was like, who's that guy? And then I remembered him from the bus and I'm like, oh, okay. Like now things were starting to make sense. Because before he was just always the guy singing the hook or the guy that you didn't see in the video or whatever. So it was good to put a face to a name or a name to a face. And after that, I was pretty locked in. So that one was special for me too.
For sure, for sure. So let's get into our R&B conversation here. Tell me what you think R&B music means. Like, what does it mean to you? Like the definition of R&B music.
I mean, it quite literally says it in the title. It's rhythm and it's blues. I mean, like we have rhythm all throughout our life. The way we walk is a rhythm. The way we talk is rhythm. The way we interact with one another, one another, that's rhythm as well. And we all have felt the blues. I mean, we've all felt sad. We've all felt angry. We've all felt jealous or mournful. And R&B is essentially a way of life. I mean, if you even think about the way R&B was born, right? Like it's born on the Delta, the Southern Delta. And at that time, you only really had two forms of music. You had gospel music, and then you had what they call the devil's music, because it was created in the juke joint, and it didn't talk about God saving your issues. It didn't talk about going to the water to seek salvation. It was talking about some real shit. Hey, my woman just left me for the man down the street, and I'm pissed off about it, Or, I got a little lady on the side, and I don't know, I'm kind of sneaking on my wife with her. Like, this was the real shit that nobody wanted to talk about, because really you just had work in church, but then you always had the juke joint, you always had the bar, and that's where the truth came out. So even if you think about just what R&B like historically is, it is the story of our people, and by our people, you know what I mean, like it's for the niggas. But it's always been for us and by us. So to me, everything that we have, whether it's disco, whether it's hip hop, whether it's funk, whether it's alternative, whatever, it all stems from just rhythm and blues. So it is the mother of all of this. That's what R&B is to me.
I agree. I think it's really so much connected to us as a people and how all of our different types of music genres come from. They're all connected, right? And I think that you could pick one that we've kind of specialized in as a people and say that it started everything that we've done, or whether you decide to have our origins in gospel, or you decide to have our origins in R&B, or you decide to have our origins in rock and roll, like all of it comes from us. I think that's the biggest point of it, is like we started all of this shit, and I think R&B is a perfect example of how we started it, and it's grown to be so and touch everything else that has become popular in our culture, especially in America, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, everybody always wants in on it. Every pop star always wants their R&B era. You can't name one pop star that hasn't gone through like a R&B phase or R&B era. We have people like Mary J. Blige, who's considered the queen of hip hop soul. Now we're mixing genres, and we have different offshoots of R&B. Like, it has different kids. Like R&B really is like the foremother to rock and roll, dare I controversially say. But like, you don't have the rock and the aggression without the blues and the rhythm. So yeah, I mean, it is essentially the blueprint for everything that we have.
So what do you think what do you think about the current state of R&B right now?
I actually like where R&B is right now. I've been like saying this a lot the last couple months, especially the latter half of last year. But I really think 2024 is going to be the year of kind of R&B having that resurgence again that I think most people thought it kind of lacked. There was this kind of narrative for some years of, oh, R&B is dead, even though I thought of it to be very much alive and evolving. We had in the early 2010s that alternative R&B movement with Miguel and Frank Ocean and Janae and everyone coming out, and now we're in a new R&B phase where, like, personally, I think the women are really running shit. But you have a lot of artists right now. You have Lucky Day, you have Anderson .Paak, you have Jasmine Sullivan, you have, well, Tiana has retired, you have Kalani, who I think is about to come back with something soon. You have SZA, who literally, like, granted her album was diverse overall, but like Snooze was one of the biggest hits of last year, and it's a traditional R&B song. So I think we're in a really good place, and especially when you have someone like Usher headlining the Super Bowl and dominating so much so that he had the highest rated Super Bowl halftime performance of all time. I mean, I think it's a testament to where we are and how far we've come. Not to say that previous acts haven't been R&B, but they've always been on the line. Whereas Usher, granted, has experimented, but we do consider him to be, if Michael, is king of pop or whatever, he's like the sun up. And this year makes 20 years since Confession, came out. So I think to have him headline the year that makes 30 years of him in the game, and then 20 years since Confessions, which is still to this day, I think like no other R&B album has gone diamond since then. I think that's just a testament to his legacy and also to the legacy of the genre. So I think we're in a good place. I think, we're headed, people are starting to get their flowers. Victoria Monet, another one dominating the Grammys. So yeah, I think we're in a good place. I like where R&B is. It's making me happy.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this on the other previous episode, the first episode of R&B season. I think the difference when we start talking about, the current state of any genre, but like specifically as it relates to R&B, is like the way that we consume music is so different than it was 5-10 years ago. Like it's hard to put that pinpoint on a sound. It's hard to put people in a box. It's hard to say these select people are dominating a specific genre. So I think that that's kind of what's clouded. Like you said, I don't think that R&B was dead. I think it's just people would say it's dead because it hasn't had the star power that it used to have. But that's a result of, I think, the technology that we're dealing with in the age that we're in. Is like there's just a lot of good music, right? Like there's a lot of people who are doing really cool things or making really dope music that they may not have this one superstar that's making mega hits, but like there's a lot of good, consistently like solid projects that are coming out from a lot of different people, which makes it, a good time for R&B, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a time in music where like one genre hasn't quote unquote fallen off or hasn't like kind of not had that star power. Like, you know, even in the 60s, like Stack Records down, you know, in Memphis, they were doing amazing work with Isaac Hayes and a ton of other artists. But the thriving sound at the time was like either Wall of Sound if you were out in LA with Phil Spector's murderous ass, or if you went up to Detroit and you were doing the Motown sound. But like those were the stars, but that doesn't mean there weren't other genres that were thriving or other forms of R&B that were thriving at that time. So I think everything goes through a phase of like, okay, now we're shiny, we're here. And then sometimes you got to take a step back, maybe, you know, reevaluate some things, let some new kids come on the block. And then, you know, you always come back. Good music always makes, good genres always make a good comeback.
So talking about our guys, P and Chad, what is your favorite collaboration between, you know, those guys and an R&B artist, or maybe an artist that's not R&B that made an R&B song?
Well, I was thinking about this question since you sent it. Because because this answer could go in a lot of different places. Because if you ask me, well, obviously you are, that was stupid, but my favorite R&B song by the Neptunes is Use Your Heart, which you can arguably, only because you do have Tonight's the Night, you can arguably say Use Your Heart is the first Neptunes R&B song, or just the first Neptune song in general. Because Tonight's the Night had a lot of influence from Teddy, and it was a bit like, oh, we're letting the kids shine a little bit. And I think like Pharrell only wrote on that song, where Chad kind of assisted more with production. But like Use Your Heart is the first time we're really seeing like the Neptunes kind of shine as the Neptunes. There's no Teddy in there. It's just them. And oh my God, why can't I think her name? And I'm gonna like fucking pinch myself for not remembering her name. Huh? Yes, Tammy, because Tammy always gets forgotten, and I really want to give Tammy her flowers because she plays a major role in all of this, and I always want to make sure Tammy gets her flowers. Tammy, I love you. I just had a brain fart because I'm rolling a blunt, and I am like doing a lot, but I love you. But Use Your Heart is the first time you really get the Neptunes as the Neptunes. You can, even now in retrospect, you can hear them kind of trying to find themselves, like harmony wise, and like, okay, you were playing around with some things, trying to figure out how this goes. And even the demo of Use Your Heart sounds completely different from what we actually get. So you can tell that they were learning as they were going. And even watching or listening to some of Tammy's interviews, like she says the same thing. Like they were essentially trying to figure shit out as they were going. But I mean, I could also say that like the stuff they did with Beyonce is great. I think the things they did with Usher is like, I think the Neptunes have a really good grasp on R&B because one, Pharrell is like really a student of R&B. I think people know how much of a student of hip hop he is, but I think people kind of underestimate how much he really does love R&B. I mean, that's where his idea of melodies come from. Like he's such a melodies like driven guy because of R&B. Even his influences, he always speaks on Stevie and Michael and Earth, Wind and Fire. And what is that? That's like, especially Stevie and Earth, Wind and Fire, that's all the way, he was born in what, 73? So like that's all the 70s, and like songs like Reasons and like Boogie Wonderland, or even like Superstition, like all of that is so like percussion and just melody driven. So I think the Neptunes are so underrated with their R&B production. But my personal favorite R&B song from them would probably be Use Your Heart, just because I think it's so pure, and it's before you get to like the experimentation of the Khalees with like, this is all R&B, or when you get to Beyonce and it's like, okay, this could be funky, or this can be like, because you know, I think of their work with, you know, with B-Day, or even Pharrell working on Blow, or even like Work It Out. Like it's very, they tend to do a lot of funky kind of production with her really well. Or you have like this kind of like Michael Jackson kind of pop, but we're still in the R&B bracket of like a Justin Timberlake, or even a Usher. So I think those are fun. But as far as like a traditional R&B song, I'm always going to go to Use Your Heart, because it's just so pure, like, and you can really hear them trying to figure out, oh, so this is how we work with a woman's voice, this is how we work with textures. And yeah, I think it's one of their best songs. So
Yeah, I want to touch on something that you mentioned that I think is a clear part of the case about the discussion of, does Justin Timberlake make R&B music, right? So you talked about, you know, P's inspiration and being influenced by those hardcore 70s, 80s R&B guys, Stevie, Earth, Wind and Fire. And he mentions that in the videos where he's in the studio with Justin. So like there's no question that album is R&B influenced because P is R&B influenced. Like that's the end of the discussion. Like he's channeling those people that you just talked about, Stevie and Earth, Wind and Fire, in those sessions with this guy. So like, there's no way to avoid the fact that for anyone, I don't think that there are. I don't know. I haven't really had a debate with anyone. Like me and Vogue talked about it and we agreed. Like, but for anyone who's out there who doesn't think that Justin Timberlake specifically makes R&B music, and even more specifically that Justified has R&B music on it, like you're crazy. Straight up. Like it's no argument. Like you lose. We just proved it right there.
That actually reminds me of a part in one of those videos, which I do this like once or twice a year, but I encourage you to go watch all like 20 videos that are about 40 minutes long. So it's probably going to take up like all of your day, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. But there's a part in one of those videos, and I can't tell you which part it is, where Pharrell's standing there and he's like, I can't wait to hear what R&B radio is going to say about this, because there's nothing on the radio that sounds as like, this is R&B. Like, you can't tell me it's not. Like, he's literally standing there saying, it's like, what do y'all got that's going to compete with this? And when you go back and look at 2002, especially in R&B, there really was nothing else that could really compete with what Justified is. Now, I've also never had an argument with anyone saying that Justified isn't an R&B album. I think that's because most of the people know that a lot of the songs are inspired by like Michael, obviously, because he said how some of the songs he wanted to give to Michael, and then, you know, like Stevie and Earth, Wind and Fire. Like, these are people that they mentioned. I think this was Chad that said this or Justin that said this, but like they kind of drove around one time and was just listening to like Stevie Wonder and like just listening to this music from the 70s and 80s to kind of draw this inspiration. Obviously, you hear certain influences more than others just for like principle's sake, but I don't disagree with Justified being a mostly R&B album. I actually think it is. I think Justified is the reason why when Justin did decide to do Man in the Woods, even though that is a Neptunes album, I think that, well, mostly because, you know, there's Timbaland in there as well. But like, I think that's why it threw people off so much, because I think people were used to, my friend described it best. She said the reason why Michael probably turned down a lot of the things from Justified was because he didn't want to off the wall 2.0. And I think that's what people were constantly expecting from Justin, because even when you think of Future Sex Love Sounds, it sounds like Justified, but just elevated. Even when you listen to like the 2020 Experience, it kind of sounds like all of that, but just elevated. And then you get to the Man in the Woods, which, not to say that it doesn't sound that way, because I actually think once I got over my anger of it not being Justified 2.0, it's a pretty solid album. But like, I think that was the thing that threw people off, was that you sold this to me as you being a white boy doing R&B music, and now you're telling me you're going back to the woods, not realizing that the people that's producing the Man Going Back in the Woods also produced that, which I think shows their versatility. But I think to deny that Justified is an R&B album, like, what are we talking about? like, I don't think that argument stands. I don't think anybody could argue that it's not an R&B album.
Yeah, we did a whole episode. We've done a whole episode on Justify and a whole episode on Man in the Woods, and like Vogue hates Man in the Woods, and like in her defense, she actually does appreciate the Americana music as a genre a little bit more than me. But to that point, like we both were just like, my guy, like you can't just all of a sudden 10 years in, 20 years in, decide you want to take us back to the Tennessee in the woods, like after we've been slow jamming for forever. Even, you know, because I wasn't an NSYNC fan by any means, but once Girlfriend dropped, now you got my attention, bro. And to go from that to, and then you throw Nelly on the remix, and to go from that to Justified, and then Future Sex, and then even, you know, 2020 Experience is amazing. I think it's like 2020 Experience, unfortunately, like it's crazy that to say that it actually is kind of slept on. But
Yeah,
to go from that and then go back to the woods, like it definitely threw me off. But once we did the episode and I sat with it, like it's not bad. Like there are some good songs on there that, you know, you just gotta be open to them. I think that's the problem, is that so many of us were not open to it because we wanted it to be, like you said, we got Pharrell and JT back in the studio together. We need the follow-up to Justified, and we got an album that Justin Timberlake made for his family and for his wife and his son.
I
Go.
think it was less about people feeling like they weren't. Well, I think it was less about people being open minded. I think it was more about people feeling abandoned
Yeah.
because R&B, especially in 2002, like I can name a ton of art. Like R&B is at, I don't want to say it's peak, but it's at a really, really good place in 2002. Personally, I feel like it did reach a peak with Confessions. I think it kind of goes high. And then from 2005 to 2006 to 2007, you kind of see us kind of scaling back. So by 2008, 2009, we're going full EDM. We're going full, like, pop hits. Like you see it from Nelly, you saw it from Usher, Chris Brown, Rihanna, Beyonce. You're seeing it from Sierra. You're seeing it from all the big stars. Yeah, they'll throw R&B songs in there because Four is an R&B album, but what was the biggest song off of it? Run the World. So I think it was more so a thing of like, you came back on an R&B tip because Suit and Tie to me is very R&B. And then it was like you kind of just abandoned everyone to go back to the woods. And it was like, okay, so then what the fuck was us? Like, I think because R&B, especially with white artists, it's always looked at as, oh, when I want to go into my rebellious era or when I want to go against the norm, oh, then I just start hanging around a whole bunch of black people and listening to black music and wearing black clothes and doing black music. And we've seen this with a lot of artists. So I think the Neptunes were always the go-to for artists like a Britney or a Justin, because it was like, oh, I can change my look and just go instantly to you. I mean, even the new song Pharrell just dropped with Miley, he said that was recorded back in the
Bangers
what
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
back in the Bangers era. But if you listen to it, it was all Mike Will. So it's like this idea that we know that white artists will pick up black culture and music when they want to, and then they leave it alone when it doesn't fit what they're looking for. And I think the way it was marketed, it was like marketed it. But I think the way it was marketed just wasn't the right way. I think it was giving very, I'm going back to my roots. And it was like, well, nigga, we thought the whole time that this was your roots. So what is your roots? So that plus we started living in a very different era. So a lot of people were hating him because they was like, it's been some years. Now we realize the Janet Jackson thing was your fault.
Right.
So it was just it was just not a good time for him. It was like you picked the wrong time to go back to the woods.
Those
Like,
two things combined definitely were not a good combination of us. Like, there's something else that he said too about maybe it was Brit. I don't know, because like that's what the whole song with my man country singer that's on the album Stapleton. Like when he's the whole
yes,
song Say Something is about basically him having this like he needing to speak up on issues that were around him, and so that's like yeah. But I wanted to say something that you made a good point about, like when you talked about Pharrell making it easier and the Neptune, Pharrell and Chad both making it easier for people outside of hip hop, outside of R&B, specifically white artists, to be able to feel comfortable to get with them, to connect with that audience. I think that's also the same thing that makes people like me and people in my age group be drawn to them in the first place too, because they were these alt kids that were nerdy. So like on one side, you got Pharrell giving a place and a space for the nerdy black kids to feel comfortable and be accepted, but also him being a bridge for the non-hip hop, non R&B white artists or other ethnic artists to come in and be like, now I got a way to get in because like I connect with this guy too. So I think that really just shows the power of P. Like Pharrell is just his persona is just so unique and so multidimensional. I think that the fact that he can create those spaces for so many different types of people to be connected to him and to each other, I think is a really dope sentiment and like a testament to him and who he is as an artist and as a person.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, he talks about his childhood. We know he was like raised in the projects until a certain age, and then they moved to kind of the suburbs. And he talked about how like the white kids were listening to hip hop, but then the black kids were listening to rock, and it kind of was confusing him a bit because he was just like, all right, well, I mean, they kind of do this in the hood too, but like it's like a different kind of thing. And I think as black people, we can relate to maybe you grew up in the hood and then your parents started making more money, and so you move out to the suburbs and it's kind of a different experience. Like I kind of felt the same way. I grew up in the hood for, a good chunk of my life. And so me and my friends, we listened to rock music and alternative music and pop music just the same way we listen to hip hop and R&B. And then when I changed schools and started going to a majority white school, I noticed that they also listened to the same music, but the way they digested it was different than the way I digested it. So you learn to take both of those sides with you throughout life. And I think that's what always made Pharrell different, was that he got a chance to experience being on the block with the drug dealers, and they pulling up with the flashy shit, and you outside with the homies, and they probably rolling blunts and doing shit they shouldn't be doing, but then also going to school with the kids that's riding the bikes, and hey, we're going to go to the skate park, you want to link up? Like, he got the best of both worlds, and he found a way to, it was in him, so he found a way to just make it what they were doing anyway. And Chad was always the best friend down for the ride, and he could relate too because he had a similar experience.
Right.
I also think Chad kind of being like the Asian dude, and then nobody ever really knew Pharrell's ethnicity. He just kind of looked biracial. So it was like, oh, okay. Like, even when people used to talk about them, like, yo, it's these two weirdos down in Virginia that's making some good ass music. So I think from the jump, they weren't afraid to be themselves. I think it was when he had Q-Tip on his Apple show that he was, or it was some type of interview he did where I remember like someone talking about how Pharrell would like pop up to like a Tribe Called Quest shows down in Virginia. This is like before niggas was making money. And he would have on the weirdest shit, and people would look at him like, who the fuck is this kid? But they always remembered him because of his energy, and he wasn't afraid to be himself. And yeah, I think he opened the door for a lot of us to just kind of be like, oh, so we could just say fuck it and just be who we are. We don't have to kind of fit in one bubble because of where we're from or our name. Oh, all right, bet. And I think we see a lot of that now. So we got to give P his flowers, and Chad, because Chad deserves. And Chad's a Pisces like me. So period.
Yeah, I think Mad Skills told his version of that story too. I think because I think there was a point where Mad Skills was either traveling with Tribe, or he just was going to all the Tribe shows, but he remembers telling a story on his Drink Champs episode about meeting Pharrell at one of those shows. So
yes, I think that's the one where he was talking about when him and Pharrell were trapped in New York City during 9/11. I think that was or was that a different interview?
That was a different interview, but I do remember that story too, which is crazy. Like, absolutely crazy. Shout out to Matt Skills, man. He's from my hometown, Richmond, Virginia. Like, every time I get a chance to be in the space with that guy, I just want to make sure that he knows that we appreciate what he did, just because he put Richmond on the map, but then he was definitely part of this renaissance of people from Virginia that in the 90s were just doing a bunch of cool shit that set the tone for us and a lot of different people to be doing cool shit today still, which is dope.
I know Pharrell has his Lego movie coming out, but I'm still holding on that one day Pharrell and Chad are going to sign off on the paperwork of doing a Netflix kind of like Stranger Things style, but not like Stranger Things in the sense of like sci-fi, but just like a like 90s teens in Virginia, loosely based on the Neptunes and its music, like TV show, so that Mad Skills can get his fucking flowers. I just want to see like Mini Missy and Mini Tim and like Mini Family. Shout out my brother Fam. And like, all of like I don't know. I've always wanted to see that because I think we know the stars of it, but I don't think people really understand. And I'm not even from Virginia, but I guess I'm like honorary. They love me. But just the stories that I hear from people that I know, from Fam, from my homegirl Kina, from like the stories that I do hear, I'm just like, I can only imagine what the energy was like down there in this time when everyone's trying to make some shit happen. So yeah, shout out to Mad Skills and just everyone who played a major role in like putting Virginia on the map, because it wasn't just 4 people, it was several.
There's a bunch. There's a bunch. So who do you think is the best collaborator with the Neptunes when it comes to making R&B music? You can say you can say favorite. Like, whenever you get those conversations, best doesn't necessarily have to be a
Man, you finna get me shot at these streets. No, I don't want nobody to come at my neck. This is why like stuff like this be like, because niggas finna be like, you said who? And I'm like, I'm gonna need y'all to mind y'all business.
Questions like this
Wow.
are always difficult because in the moment, especially when people ask me, like if you ask me anything about my favorite or the best as it relates to the whole discography of work with these guys, like I could give you 8 different answers if you ask me 8 different days in a row. Like, it just depends on with the vibe that you catch me in. So don't feel the pressure, yo. Just answer, just speak your truth, yo.
This is so ghetto, but I have to go with someone who obviously has done more than one song with them.
Yeah.
And I have to go with someone that they have a rapport with. So I'm laughing at myself. I I wish the Neptunes had more time with Usher,
Mm-hmm.
but the way like and then Justin they really didn't have because to me it's like yeah okay we got Man in the Woods and Justified, but then it's like a huge chunk of that that's just missing due to their own personal issues. So I'm gonna have to go with like Beyonce because
Mm.
she's their one consistent collaborator, whether it's just been her and the Neptunes or her and Pharrell, where consistently throughout her career, when she does work with them,
Yep.
it's never been a miss for me. Like
Yep.
out of all of them, I would say maybe Work It Out would go like maybe last, but even that it was a like it wasn't a hit, but it was like it
I
did
love
what it
that
needed to
song.
do.
That song is, I love
I
that song.
love that song.
Chad on the horn is just beautiful.
It's
Like,
crazy. And then like you have that one record that I think was released overseas on Dangerously in Love, or it was like a side record or some shit, or like a demo record or some shit.
you talk
Um,
first time joint.
yeah. And then which I do love. I mean, it wasn't again not a hit, but it wasn't a single, but I liked it. And then of course there's shit on B Day. Like they did Green Light. What are we talking about? Green Light. So if you want to, you got the green light. Like with the whole like almost like Sheila E inspired production. Like what are we talking? They did Kitty Cat. What are we talking about? Like
Yeah, it's so funny you brought. So Kitty Cat is a very important song to me, which is, I meant to tell you this before we started. So I just got married last weekend.
oh my God, congratulations.
This is Dave. Like, no, this is the first time saying that on record. The podcast is hearing this for the first time. But my
Oh
wife's name is
my
Kia. Her full name is Nakia, but we call her Kia, which I meant to share with you because I thought that was hilarious. But Kitty Cat, like, we heard that at a Neptune's party in DC, and we were both lit, and like she started like singing and dancing to it, and I recorded, and I was like, that was one of the few moments of it. That was probably like maybe 4 months into us being together where it was like, all right, cool. I'm good. Wrapping it up. So Kitty Cat is a huge part of our story, but it's for exactly the reason that you talked about, like the combination of those two together, Beyonce and the Neptunes, like they haven't missed. I wouldn't say they've missed at all. I mean, like Work It Out is good. I mean, you even got to throw it back to the Emotions remix. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fire.
It,
Green Light, Kitty Cat, Superpower is fire. Blow is crazy.
I just want people to know how iconic. And this is what I mean because like the influences from Pharrell shows up like so much in the music. Blow is such a quintessential like Mary Jane Girls, like Vanity Six type of song that only Pharrell's mind could think of. Of like, if we're gonna go here, we need to go. Like, I can just see him in the studio, like just freaking the fuck out over some Rick James Rift inspired shit that he just came up with. So like I'm telling you, they don't miss. Like I know everything happened with the Khalees sample, but like even the milkshake sample on Renaissance.
Bro.
We come on, like what are we talking about, yo? Like what is niggas really talking about? They get in the studio with Beyonce. To me, I feel like Beyonce is literally, and I don't mean this with well, actually I do mean this with a slight pun. Beyonce is like their dream girl. So Beyonce I feel like with Khalees, they were able to get off a lot of that rough, raw shit. That's just like, yeah, this is gonna get those alt kids, and But Beyonce, they were able to. We're going to make you glamour. You are our sassy diva, and I think they were able to unleash a lot of that with Beyonce. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's the motherfucking, it's the kings with the queen, and that's what it is.
I think it's gotta be. I think it's gotta be B. I think there's no like you mentioned, Justin could be in the conversation, but you have that gap when they weren't really rocking with each other. And then
Mm-hmm.
Usher, like Usher has a bunch of Lucy's, but
Yeah.
they got cut, and they got cut for a reason because they're very like high. We introduced this concept when we were talking to Corey Towns of shout out to Corey Towns. this
Yes.
concept of high mid. So it's like your favorite artists, your favorite producers, your favorite musicians, when they make shit that's not like the best, it's not even close to the best shit that they ever done, but it's still not bad. Like it's mid,
Right.
but it's high mid because it's them. Like so, that's kind of what some of those leftovers from the Usher projects that they're good, but they're not like.
I mean, I have an unpopular opinion with Usher's discography anyway, and he's my king of R&B as far as right now, even though much love to Bobby Brown. But I think Usher has a lot of high mid in his discography. So, I mean, making albums to me was never his strong suit. Um,
That's cool.
but I do think as an entertainer and as a vocalist and overall, he's amazing. And we did get, well, I don't know if that song really matters anymore because Puff is on it and we all know Puff. So that's gonna be our
I love
that
that
used to,
song. I love
I
that
don't
song.
know,
Love
but
that
no,
song.
I don't know about that song anymore. And then we have You Don't Have to Call, which
Yeah.
honestly, they could have given me nothing else. Like they could have said this is our last time working together, and I would have been perfectly fine. Because I kid you not, when the Super Bowl happened and I heard After Tonight, I was like, oh yeah, the Neptunes have. I want the Neptunes side note to have a Super Bowl. I really do. I feel like a Neptunes led Super Bowl would be so fucking fire. Like all the people they could call. What are we talking about? But yeah. Anyway, Usher just don't have it.
It's like I actually like I feel like you've given me space to say this and I feel more comfortable saying it now. I don't think I've never listened to a whole Usher project or like I never really like was vibing with the whole Usher project ever. Like even Confessions, like I've listened to it all the way through a handful of times. And honestly, like that's recently in the streaming era when I could just get it on Apple Music and then just say, oh, I'm gonna check it out. Now, do I
Right.
recognize the fact that he had like 8 singles from that joint and they're all like fire? I mean, My Boo is hot mid, but at the same time, like this Caught Up is crazy.
Caught Up is a good
Throwback with Jadakiss is
Woo!
crazy. Obviously, Superstar is wild. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, man, I do feel you on that point. Like Usher hasn't really like Confessions is really, 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 really good. And some of these other albums are like they got smash records, but haven't been really, I personally haven't really checked for it as a whole album. And to your point about you don't have to call, like we talked about this on the episode before too, is like to me, I'm always blown away that it's because I'm such a Neptunes fan. To me, that's the Usher song. But it like really is top 15 to a lot of people, which is crazy to me. Like, I think that's because I don't really want to hear You Got It Bad or Let It Burn or like, Nice and Slow is really got to be some mood shit. But if I'm just like enjoying my day, You Don't Have to Call is the Usher song for me.
I will go as far as to say I think You Don't Have to Call is in a lot of people's top 10. And the only reason I say that is because out of all the songs he could have done for the Super Bowl halftime, that was the second, no, technically third, because My Way was technically the first one.
All right.
But it's the second song he performs.
Yeah.
So he knows what that song. I mean, even if it's not a Neptunes themed party, you can just be having a party and drop You Don't Have to Call. And people just, it is something about that song and the video and the whole essence of it. It just makes so much sense. I mean, After Tonight, don't leave your girl around. Like, you can finish the rest of the sentence. Like, he don't even need to say it. You can finish it for him. Like, it's become that iconic. So I don't know what it is about You Don't Have to Call that is just so fucking good. But I mean, I know Pharrell is credited as writing it completely by himself. So I don't know if like who broke his heart or who like messed with him, but he said you don't have to call. It's okay, girl, because I'm gonna be all right tonight and I'm gonna get this on the Usher and I'm gonna have a long lasting hit. Thank you. So I don't know what happened, but thank you to whoever broke Pharrell's heart and gave us You Don't Have to Call. I
Yeah, man.
appreciate that.
Pharrell really is one of the OG like lover boys, like on the low, like I think
On the low, this nigga is a full lover boy. Like, what are we talking about? This man is the ultimate lover boy. Like, I mean, just number of songs we can run through of just like, oh, you really like be talking to, I know he be talking to girls crazy.
bro.
He be the one talking that raspy shit. That's why he told other people not to talk to him that raspy shit. Because he like, I talk it, so you can't talk what
Uh,
I talk. I'm telling you, Pharrell is a lover boy. Pharrell needs to do this thing where he like for like maybe the month of February, like he'll just like write you like a little thing that you could send to your girl or your boy. Like, yo, there's a little something you know how much money he could make from that?
Oh man, his own Valentine's Day greeting cards.
That nigga could like, yo, honestly, like 06P, I might have been pregnant. I don't know. I don't know. Like that happened.
Um, so who is somebody that does R&B music that you wish would have worked with them that hasn't?
Oh, this might be another controversial one. I want Doja Cat to work with the Neptunes.
Okay.
So, I know people probably wouldn't call her an R&B artist, even though to me she has done R&B songs.
Yep.
But I would love to hear. So I'll give you two because I don't think people would call her an R&B artist, but she's an artist who has done R&B music that I would love to hear work with the Neptunes. She's spoken about time and time again how much she would love to work with them or Pharrell. But an actual R&B artist that I would love to see work with the Neptunes. I know she already did some stuff with them, but we never heard it. Is Chloe.
Okay.
I actually want to hear those things she came up with the Neptunes because I think to me it just makes sense, you know, like just her influences and what she really actually enjoys musically. I think that her and the Neptunes could really come up with some fire shit. I think that could be their new Beyonce in the sense of like
Yep.
making her shiny, but also giving her that oomph to be like, oh, okay, yeah, like I can do that. So yeah, I would say Chloe and Doja. Yeah, yeah.
Anybody older from our era, more our era, like back when we were growing up?
Mm, let me see. Who's somebody who I feel like didn't get a chance to work with the Neptunes? Because there was a time where everybody was spending budget.
Everybody.
Beat. Everybody was like, yo, just extend the budget a little bit for a Neptunes beat. Even Babyface got a Neptunes beat from the Neptunes, which is crazy that Babyface went to the Neptunes. I just want to be very clear about here. Somebody from our time who I feel like really didn't,
That's
or
hard because most everyone had at least one. Like,
you know who I think would have done really cute with like a Neptunes beat had he had the chance was probably Chris Brown.
okay. Yep.
That would have been cute. It wouldn't have probably fit on his debut album because a lot of that was like extremely like soulful R&B driven. But I think on that like sophomore project on exclusive, I think we could have slipped in a little
Yep.
Neptune's jam for the girls. I wish we actually would have got our like Neptune song on Good Girl Gone Bad. I know they eventually did work with Rihanna, but like Good Girl Gone Bad would have actually been really cute to kind of bring in a like Neptune song with Riri.
Yep.
If there's another artist, who's another artist that I wish would have got? You know, I always wanted to hear Janet and the Neptunes. And once I found out that they had did some shit for All For You and it got scrapped, and then of course they did I'm a Slave For You and it went to Britney, I was so pissed off. And somebody I know has her demo of it, if there is a demo of it. But yeah, I always wanted to hear Janet and the Neptunes because I felt like that just always would have just made so much damn sense to me, especially in that All For You era.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, that would have been so fucking fire, like the Neptunes and Janet.
Yeah, because
But
that's like around the same time that they were able to throw her on the Beanie Man joint on the hook. That originally
yeah,
had Joe on it, but I think her on it was I mean, like it was I think the Joe version was still good, but definitely having Janet on that hook made that song super dope for sure.
yeah, but I never, like it's there. It's not one of my favorite Neptune songs, so it's just like, it's there. But I would have really liked to just hear them and Janet.
Yep.
Like, because she already works with a duo. I always said that, like, that's why it made so much sense to me when Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis inducted them into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, because it really is a lineage of like Jimmy Jam and Terry. You can kind of sneak in LA Reid and Babyface, but then it really just goes straight to like Chad and Pharrell. So it would have been nice to see her work with another twosome duo of a newer generation and just kind of see what would have came from that. But yeah, that was one opportunity that I actually would have wanted Janet and the Neptunes more than Michael and the Neptunes. So
That sounds like that makes more sense to me, honestly.
yeah.
Like just because Mike was in a different space around that time. And I think that Janet was so closer to what we knew and loved Janet to be than Mike
Mm-hmm.
was at that point, in his career. Like when the Neptunes were really coming back and I mean not coming back, but getting started. Like Mike
Yeah.
he was hitting his
Mike was already
third, fourth
like
iteration of himself.
40s. Yeah, and I think You know, I used to like really be upset. Like, damn, I wish Michael would have took them beats. And then like when I think back on it, I think about when they've done interviews about it and they've said like Michael would call while they were in the studio making Justified just to check on them. And
Right.
I always kind of saw it as like a father kind of, because also in 2003, I think that's when Pharrell and Michael did their interview magazine interview
Right.
together.
Yep, yep.
And so I think Michael always saw it as I'm past this, but I want to make sure you're doing what you're doing. Like I'm just checking in to make sure that you're following the lineage that I laid out. Oh, okay, y'all are. Okay, bet. Like I think that was like Michael's way of just checking, like, okay, I just want to make sure y'all doing what I laid out for y'all. Cause he saw the greatness in them. Like he saw the talent in them. So yeah, I kind of looking back on it, I think Michael just kind of knew like, no, but this works perfectly for what I think Michael saw what was about to happen before they did. I think Michael knew, okay, you're giving this to Justin. Okay, so this is going to work perfectly for him because he had already been there. He went to Quincy and had that moment. So this was Justin's moment to go to the Neptunes and get that moment. And I think Michael knew that, which makes it even more special because it's like, oh, like you gave that up because you knew what was happening. And that's so sweet.
Yeah, so we talked about Use Your Heart as your favorite, but what do you think is an underrated Neptune's R&B track that like either you think people don't really know or you think maybe people missed or slept on?
I have two. So for the white people, because shout out to all my white people in the back, I'm gonna say Omarion Touch. For my people, I'm gonna go Hit the Freeway by Tony Braxton.
Mm.
Cause that bridge, oh, I
Mm.
will really run that song back just
Mhm.
to hear the bridge. Like
Mhm.
I get like floated into air when that bridge comes on, and I'm just like, oh my God, he fucking it gives me the same. Honestly, that's probably the only other song where the bridge for me matches the bridge of Frontin'.
Yeah.
Like the bridge on Hit the Freeway, it really just takes me to a whole nother place.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would say for like us, I would say Hit the Freeway, but then for like all my like, non-melanated people, I would say Omarion Touch.
Yeah, I think Hit the Freeway is definitely on there. Underrated. I think like Tony was not in her 90s like superstardom, but like she made some good music
Mm,
in those early 2000s that people, if you were
yeah.
paying attention, you caught it. Like she got a joint on not this album, but the other album after this, I think that Rich Harrison did, Take This Ring. That is like
Yes, yes.
absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy.
No, I agree. I think that Tony definitely in the early 2000s, after the heat, I think people stopped really tapping in the way they should have.
Mhm.
But like, there's a lot of stuff between that like 2000 to maybe like '06 era where like she was actually bringing some fire if you were really listening and tapping it. But Hit the Freeway is just one of them for me that I'm just like, oh my God, like this was so good. And I'm like, why didn't this be why wasn't this a hit? Like, I don't understand. But label stuff and how that happens.
Yeah.
But no, that's definitely one of the ones. And then on Marion's Touch, I feel like our community knows it because I think that was like a 106 and Park just staple. And don't
Yep.
get me wrong, there definitely are people outside of our community that definitely know Omarion's Touch. But I think that's just one of those songs that just like overall doesn't get the necessary flowers that it needs. Like the keys on the like chorus, like the way it breaks down and you hear Pharrell in the background with "Oh baby." You
Yep.
know what else? And I don't know if this counts as an R&B song, but to me, I'm gonna count it as an R&B song. It's "Come Close" by Common. I think a lot of people don't give the Neptunes their flowers for that, and I think Pharrell's voice with Mary J. Blige's voice sounds so good on that track. Like that's such a good ass song. I don't even think a lot of people even know they produced that. But yeah, that's another one. I don't know if people would consider it R&B. I do. I neo soul, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's another one that just came to mind that I'm like, that's such a fucking good song. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's another superpower of the Neptunes and Pharrell specifically, like to be able to take a rap song and make you feel like it's an R&B song. So like you get that
Mhm.
with Close, you get that with LL Love You Better. You get
Yeah. Excuse Me, Miss gives you the same vibes
Excuse Me,
too.
Miss. Yes. Those three songs are perfect. Like this is a rap song, but I'm turning this into R&B song and you don't even know it and you still love it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a fact. That's true. Oh, I love my guys.
So yesterday was 10 years of the Girl album. Any thoughts? What are your favorite songs from that album?
I actually hated Girl when it first came out. Because for me, it was giving when Pharrell was in his new black era. And I was just like, what is this? Like, I could not get jiggy with it. He had a song called Marilyn Monroe, and I was like, girl, what is going on? And then this was also at the same time where Happy was out. And if they ever invited me, like, hey, Kia, come do a TED Talk, I would literally do a TED Talk about how that is one of the worst songs ever. And it has nothing to do with its production or instrumentation or songwriting or anything. It is just a literal horrible song because you guys have made me hate it. And then I will rant for 15 minutes about how people have made the happiest song ever the most annoying, depressing song of all time. To the point that the man who made it, does not like it. Yeah, I mean, so at that time, I think I kind of didn't listen to it or tap into it. And then maybe like a year or two later, I was like, oh, okay, well, let me like tap into it. I heard Gush and I said, oh, I said, oh, this is bugging. And it actually is a pretty good album. I love the song with him and Justin, Brand New. The song with him and Alicia Keys is like beautiful. Absolutely love it. Come Get It Bae wasn't bad either. I really like that. Gust of Wind is fire. I think that's on like my autumn playlist. I have like a playlist for different seasons. But yeah, actually listening to the album, I was like, okay, this actually isn't bad. It was another one of those things where I think I just didn't give it a chance because it wasn't the Pharrell that I was used to. And I went through a phase. I don't know if this happened with you, but I went through a phase of like, damn, you're not the Pharrell I grew up on. You're not the Pharrell I knew. Like, and I was kind of going through that. But then when I listened to it, I'm like, no, he's still there. He's just more polished and he's a father and a husband and more mature now. Okay. But yeah, it's actually crazy that like the Neptunes Presents turned 20 last year, and then Girl is turning 10, well, has turned 10 this year. Seeing your faves get older through their music is really interesting.
Yes.
But I'm excited to see what the future holds. I know he said he was working on like more Neptune stuff. Obviously, he's still working with other artists. I love the song with him and Miley. So it's enjoyable to see the evolution of things. Like to go from In My Mind, which is very braggadocious, egotistical at its finest. I know he hates it, but I love it. So to see him go from that to this album where he's speaking about women and love in such an affectionate and honest way, and him now being of course, even now he's a father, but like, being a father and being a husband, and he's more mature, he's more polished, he's more, refined. I think it was a really dope evolution, and I'm excited to hear what's next after Girl, because now it's been 10 years, so your life has changed completely again. So I need to hear what's next. But yeah, I've grown to appreciate it. Whereas In My Mind, I instantly got it. Whereas Girl, it kind of took me a minute.
Yeah, I think definitely, transition into the conversation about what's next, right? Like I think he teased this Friends album over a year ago and everyone's like, bro, where is it at? And we keep getting these Lucy's dropped every now and then. And so, you mentioned the song with Miley. I think that song is strong. The fact that it's from the Bangers studio sessions does not give me hope because it's like you're not making new music, bro. You just dropping old music that you got left in the tuck. Like that's not what we need. We want to hear the new stuff. But the one thing I wanted to say, this is like to wrap it up, right? Like the Miley song, you know what it sets up, right? I know you know what it sets up.
I do, and I'm waiting for you to say with my point because I'm standing right behind you with the Uzi. So you let me know when you're ready to go.
The way that we going to transition from this Pharrell, Louis V, cowboy era, dropping a song at the fashion show that's got the country influence with Miley, had that single drop, and you telling me all of those things considered that this man's not on this act 2 of the Renaissance?
I'm just saying, it made too much sense to me that the man did a country themed fashion show. And then Beyonce gonna turn around and say, oh, we going country. Oh, so y'all motherfuckers be talking.
Come on, man. Like,
who in the group chat? Add me.
listen, she was coming out wearing these Louis V cowboy outfits, cowgirl outfits with like they were like Pharrell, like it looked like Pharrell picked it out. Like she could have just been in the show. Like I need at least 2. I need 2 on this. Like we gotta have two. We no, we gotta stop. Y'all teased us with the milkshake sample controversy, and that pissed everybody off. So I need two Pharrell joints on Act Two.
If
Put it
she
down.
really gagged me, she needs to do one Pharrell and one Neptunes. That'll really gag me. Because now you got Chad out the house. Oh, all right. Bet.
Chad, like, yo, listen, it's set up. So I'm the person because I have a marketing background and I always think about, things from a perspective of like what's the biggest moment that something can like be, right? So my hopes are up. My hopes are up. Expectations are high. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see.
I think we're gonna get it. Only because to me it just made too much sense that it was like he did the fashion. Excuse me, he did the fashion show, and then you turn around like a couple months later, not if that, and you're doing a country album. So, and you showed up to the Grammys wearing a Louis Vuitton cow-fired outfit. Like, the math was just mathing, and I was just like, you know what? I really think something is going on. Something is happening over there. So no, I'm glad you were reading my mind because I've been thinking the same thing, but I didn't want to tweet it because I didn't want people to think I was crazy. But no, I really do think like something is going on with those two. Those two are in the studio doing something, and I just want to hear it.
You'll appreciate this, right? Because that's where my mind always goes. Like I said, like what's the biggest, if someone had put me in charge of this, what's the biggest, most dopest thing that I could put together? So in the same concept, right? I had people hype because I was telling them, don't be surprised if Beyonce comes out on night 2 or something in the water this past year. Because remember, they had Grace Jones, Nile Rodgers, and maybe that was it. But I think just the two of them alone to be on the lineup for Sunday night at something in the water, like the two of them don't have no music other than what's popping with Beyonce at that time for them to just be out here. Like they got hit, they got music that people want to hear, but like that to me, it was set up where Beyonce was going to drop in and do like a test run at Renaissance. That was just my big picture. I'm doing the most hunch. But of course, we'll never know because Sunday night got rained out. But could you imagine though?
That would have been great. And it actually aligns with an idea that I would love for him to do. And I only got it from like really watching it last year. Was like, I want him to do like when he does do it, I want like, or at least like if he decides to perform this year, which I'm sure he will, but like I want just him to perform with all the women he's worked with. Like, let's get B if B's available. Let's get, Brittany if Brittany wants to come out and is, sane enough to, because I definitely want to make sure my sister is good. Let's get Gwen. Let's bring Gwen out. We could do something with Gwen. This is the perfect time if we need to make a therapy session. I have no problem scheduling that for you and Khalees. I think we need to make amends. Let's be friends. Because I think ultimately Pharrell can do whatever he wants in his career. Same with Chad. I think the world would always be waiting for like, because that was supposed to be like the alternative Janet, Jimmy, Terry. Like that was supposed to be the, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, they're doing their own thing. Like, and so I think people still want that, which is why I think everyone was so excited about the milkshake sample on Renaissance, because it was just like, oh, that means everybody approved of it. And then it was just like, well, no, everybody didn't approve of it. So I think that would be such a nice way to kind of like, all right, let's, even if we don't work together anymore musically, like let's kind of bury the hatchet. I'm not sure if that would really happen from Khalees's side, which I understand completely because business is still business at the end of the day. But I think that would be so dope to just see them, like the two of them with the women that they've worked with. I think that in itself would make a statement. And it's the 10-year anniversary of Girls. So what better year to celebrate than to talk about the girls? Like, it just makes sense. But that's my opinion, my ideas. I'm dreaming.
Somebody needs to hire us. Let us be the creative directors of the next Something in the Water. Like,
yeah, and he can get the two members of like 702 because they just lost their member. We could bring SWV back because they were there last year. Like, and I loved seeing them together at Roots Picnic, some years back. So it's just like, yeah, let's get this. You know what I'm saying? Do something for the girls. Like, we could bring Tony out. Tony love to come out and show a leg. She still thinks, well, yes, my queen is still sexy in her 50s. But yeah, like, let's bring the girls out.
That's a dope
Like,
idea. That is a very dope idea. That is a dope, especially if we get in these Beyonce, Pharrell country tunes. We like that's the perfect stage for it. I'm just
and we gonna have to find out on the 29th, though. We gonna find out.
That's crazy. All right. One last question. Enough with the R&B.
Mm-hmm.
That the hip hop is at your core.
Yes.
We always ask our guests this question, like who they think is their favorite or the best overall frequent collaborator. Usually it comes down to two. I'm not going to say. I'm just going to ask you to pick all specifically in the hip hop scene. Who do you think?
I'm telling you right now, it's Jay-Z.
Okay. I'm not arguing. Like that's who I pick. I pick Jay-Z all the time.
Who does it come down to? Pusha and Jay?
Comes down to Jay and Snoop.
Okay, that makes definitely a lot of sense.
Yeah, because it comes to a conversation of quantity versus quality. Really, it's like Snoop was signed to them, and he's got a bunch of them.
Right.
You know, he did the whole Bush album.
Right.
But you know,
the quality.
So the Jay-Z.
Excuse me, Miss takes it alone. I mean, Allure takes it alone. I mean, certain things just, I mean.
Hits are hits. They undeniable.
Hits are hits. Yeah, I'm just gonna, my GOAT, like, rapper with my GOAT producers, absolutely. Absolutely.
100% agree. 100% agree. So that was easy. That was an easy question.
2.5 answer.
Yo, this has been dope. Appreciate your time. When your podcast coming out? What's the plan?
It's coming out this year. I don't have a set month or date yet, but I'll give you a hint. It's definitely going to be close to October.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, go and let the people know any other projects you got coming up, things you're working on.
Yeah, I'm just really out here focusing on the podcast right now. I am starting a creative agency, but I'm taking my time with that. That's not something I really want to rush because that would be me taking on projects and things of that nature. So I definitely want to make sure I'm taking my time with that. But I'm still writing, still out here, pen game still strong, working on some pieces right now. But all in all, really just working on this. Well, I might as well just come on. Working on it is a hip hop podcast. It's called Act Two, the podcast, inspired by the Roots song Act Two, and also because I love brown sugar and a lot of people call me Sydney. Each podcast each season is gonna have its own theme, whether that be an artist, an album, or a genre, whatever. So the first season is gonna be about the socio-economic and cultural impact of Drake. It's been really hard because it's just a lot of research involved. Every day there's something new with him doing things. It's also hard because I am working with industry professionals to get them involved, but then I also have a feeling this is going to get back to Aubrey, and I'm not quite sure how he's going to feel about certain like episodes and how honest they are about certain aspects of his career and, impact on pop culture. But all in all, it is me giving my flowers, and it's essentially a love letter to one of my faves, even though he constantly disses my other fave. But, it is a love letter.
Yeah. Drake, he's come up a couple times on the course of the seasons of this show, and sometimes great, sometimes not so great, depending on what we talk about. But but the boy is the boy. I mean,
he is who he is, and I discussed that throughout the podcast. I have an outline at least, and just this idea of who he is and understanding that I do plan to address this whole beef with Push and how this all trickles down to Pharrell and where I think this all kind of stems from and my theory on that. I have one person on my list who I'm pending confirmation for an interview. And if I get this, I am going to ask if they are part of the reason we have these issues. And if I get an answer from that, then that can help me figure out what's the issue. because we've heard many theories on this whole elaborated beef that is passed down by generations. You know, people have said it's over somebody wearing babe, and then it's over because someone didn't get paid for a beat, and it's a lot involved. So yeah, so if I can get this person to answer my question, then I can get to the at least somewhat to a root of what the real issue is. So yeah, I'm debunking all of it. That's my goal. I want to go into this and try to debunk as much as I can and hopefully not get him too pissed off. I don't want to wake up on Instagram, but
Oh man, good luck. I can't wait. That sounds really dope. I think that that is a very much needed project just to have, I think to your point, like people are scared to do a deep dive just because it can take you in so many different directions. Like you gotta be prepared for that.
yeah, no, I agree. And my friends have asked me, like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, because we can't protect him if we go. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure I want to do it because regardless, either he's gonna come at me or he's gonna DM me like he does everyone else. But at least he'll talk to me
Right.
and maybe offer some catharsis, because then I could be like, well, if this is wrong, then you need to explain this. Like, or I would like for you to, if you're willing to. I think there's nothing wrong with us as the people being ready and willing to break down our artists, not break them down in a negative way, but to understand them in their artistry. And I just want to understand Drake. I think in my quest to understand him as a person and as an artist, I think I'll be able to grow a greater appreciation for his music, whether it's good or bad, because I'm not here to judge. I'm here to understand.
For sure.
So,
For sure. Last question, quick.
uh-huh.
Song that you think Drake, a Neptunes beat that you think Drake would have killed.
Fuck. Oh,
That's a hard question because if we talking about singing Drake or we talking about actual like
right.
real
Like,
rap.
I don't know. Like, how is he going to, is he coming on here with an accent? Is he like, is this
Yeah.
a love song? Like, are we
Yeah.
talking about his mama and growing up in Toronto? Like, okay, wait, give me a second, give me a second, give me a second. I can really do this. Hold on. Okay, I got this. I got this. I got this. Oh, I got this. Hold on. I got this. Okay, I can figure this out. Okay.
Like my favorite Drake is a combination of timestamp Drake and like I got a playlist called No Hook Drizzy where it's like Western Road flows and Two Birds One Stone where he's really in there, no hook. I'm just rapping. Like those are the type of songs that I like Drake the most. But that's not necessarily the best type of song he would do well with a Neptune's beat on though. So it's
Nah, you have to do some melodic shit. You gotta have some singing in there. Something that's not too like too much like the signature Neptune's drum pattern, because like that'll throw him off because he just needs a very strict. He just needs a oh my god. So if we're doing like Drake, he would have to go like LL. Like he would have to go like full like love you better
yeah,
type rap.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if I had to pick a song, I'm gonna pick a random one just because I'm being like super controversial right now, and I'm gonna purposely pick a Jay-Z beat. I'm sorry, I'm envisioning his voice on a beat. I know,
Okay.
and I'm only going with I know because I'm thinking like if you're doing like so far gone to nothing was the same Drake,
I
easily
feel that. I feel
I
that.
know because easy. I could see him like yeah, he could just go there on that beat.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that definitely fits on like something in that range between Take Care and Nothing Was the Same. Like for sure,
Mm-hmm.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. It would have to be like one of yeah, it would have to be like one of those two, to be honest with you. Like I couldn't really because everything else is like classic. I don't I couldn't even although I will say I think he could potentially snap on some shit like gotta have it.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him snapping on some shit like gotta have it. Or Mr. Me Too. Like doing one of them just I'm just rapping. I could see him doing one of those.
Yeah, Drake on Mr. Me, like I think actual rapping Drake on Mr. Me Too would be really good too, which is like blasphemy to say. Blasphemy.
It's blasphemy, but what can I do? We only have one Neptunes and Drake song, and it's not even his.
Yeah, we're gonna get like both of us are gonna get exiled from the Neptune community talking about that. Putting
I
Drake
wish
to
I've been here for a while. You can't kick me out. I met the man, okay? You can't kick me out. We're friends, okay?
Kia,
Relax.
appreciate you so much for taking the time to chat, man.
I
Really appreciate
appreciate
the
you
perspective.
having me.
Yeah, so if there's another opportunity, I mean, me and Vogue always joke that this podcast could go on for another year or it could go for 10 years because there's always something to talk about. So if there's ever opportunity to have you back on, like definitely be ready for the DM or the email so we can set that up.
Yes, please hit me up. But thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad I got out the way before I left because I didn't want to leave. So.
Yes. Have a safe trip. Happy early birthday, yo.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. It's another episode of Neptune Sunday. It's your boy V Moss. Catch y'all next time. Peace and love.